They're not protecting me, because I don't have a pot to piss in.
Heshy, why don't we just listen to B.S. Drek, our stock market expert? Explain the plunge protection team.
We should probably start back in the 80s where they came about, right? And so basically what happened was during the Reagan administration, there was a huge stock market sell-off. And it was like to the tune of like 20% in the course of like an hour. And it just freaked everybody out. And they came up with this idea. It was just like, okay, so we need a team of people who can interject money into the market in case something like this happens again. And so what they did is the Treasury, the Federal Reserve, the Security and Exchange Commissions, and the Commodity Future Trading Commission each had a member to be into the plunge protection group.
I think part of the problem is the tax cuts, because investors are betting U.S. economic growth will slow as a tax cut stimulus fades, and as 3 years of interest rate hikes by the Federal Reserve cools the purchases made by businesses and households.
We also have Wall Street on edge over reports that U.S. President Donald Trump has privately discussed firing Powell, who was nominated by Trump to be Fed chairman. And the Fed needs to be independent from politics. On top of these concerns, Washington is currently in a partial government shutdown.
Let's get back to the plunge protection team. Go on, BS.
In an exchange, you have the traders, right? These are the guys, the traders and brokers. These are the guys who buy and sell. And then you have what are called market makers, right? And what market makers do is they kind of help facilitate the trades between the brokers. Market makers make the orders happen, right?
So we have brokers, we have traders, and we have market makers. Who makes these trades happen, right?
Okay, so you got the traders, you got the market makers, right? They're the ones who are helping the traders. You got the supplement liquidity providers. And they're adding liquidity into the market makers to make sure everything's going good. Now, when they have an issue and all of a sudden they have this run and the stocks are dropping like crazy, that's when the plunge protection team comes in there and stops it. Okay, makes sense now. That when you have like these flash crashes where these algorithms are kicking in these orders and all of a sudden you're losing the Dows are sinking. That's where the plunge protection team is coming in and saying, hey, we need to stop this from happening.
Algorithms. That sounds like computers, not humans. I knew these trades were happening too fast for humans to be involved.
And occasionally these guys run out of liquidity or run low on liquidity and kind of come in some issues where they need funding and money to make sure that the markets move properly. And so what ends up happening is that they have another group that's called the supplement liquidity providers, right? And what these guys do is they make sure that the market makers have plenty of liquidity for the traders to do their trade.
This is really getting complicated. I assume liquidity equates to having enough cash to continue the buying and selling, right? But how can they be sure that they are liquid enough? In a run like this there must be orders stacked up. What do they call them? Stop loss orders.
Everything is done in computer algorithms now. There's not like a whole lot of traders. Everything is done in computers. So they put computer entries in. And then these computer entries is what's running the stock market. And these computer algorithms end up triggering some of these stop losses. Dump everything I got, right? They're like, as the market's moving, and they end up throwing a buy order down in there that near these stop loss orders, and it triggers the stop loss order because they think that this is where the market's moving to.
So when does the plunge protection team go to work?
Yes, when and how?
Stop loss orders start kicking in, and those trigger more stop loss orders, which trigger in more stop loss orders, and right? And that's where the plunge protection team is supposed to step in there and inject money and start buying stocks to stem the tide.
I see the plunge protection team as the last-ditch effort to keep the stock market from imploding. And based upon the way banks charge us for every little thing they do, I'm sure this plunge protection team is not doing this out of the goodness of their black hearts.
The plunge protection team can't themselves just jump into the market and buy stocks, so they have to run it through banks. So that's where the Goldman Sachs and the JP Morgans, that's where the plunge protection team kind of teams up with these guys, right? So yesterday when we had Mnuchin come out there and he said, hey, banks are cool, everybody's got plenty of liquidity, we're going to be loaning money just fine. That was them reassuring that the plunge protection team is in place and ready to play the game, right? So that's basically the plunge protection team in the simplest of form.
It sounds like a big con game to me. You've got these algorithms that trigger sells, then it buys low, then it triggers more sells, and buys low again, then it waits, and moves higher and it sells, and makes a profit, and collects interest on the loans.